Welcome back to the Barley Lads. If you're enjoying our content, don't forget to like, subscribe. Please hit that notification bell. Today, we're drinking Roe CO Blended Irish Whiskey. This is Roe CO Blended Irish Whiskey. It's a blended Irish whiskey from Roe CO Distillery in Dublin, Ireland. 45% or 90 proof. This is a non-age statement, but a minimum of 3 years. Price-wise, you should be able to get this for around $30. It's a blend of single malt and grain whiskeys. So Roe Co., like Tyrconnell and Dunville's, are what we would refer to as a legacy brand. So these are brands that existed at one time and that have been resurrected by distillers or producers, sourcers today, and reusing that label, that name, to create a history, invoke some sort of feelings, I guess, about the brand. Roe Co. refers to George Roe, and he had at one time the largest distillery in not only Ireland but also the entire British Isles, because at the time Ireland was part of Britain. So bigger than any Scotch producer, and potentially the biggest distillery in the world. And they were one of the largest up through the 1880s, 90s, up until all the things that went wrong with Irish whiskey. And we've talked about that on previous episodes before. But yeah, so George Roe, he was neighbors with the Guinness family in town. Not houses per se, but the distillery and the Guinness brewery, which is where it still sits today, were neighbors for many years, and they did not get along. What's interesting about that is Diageo, which is the parent company of Guinness, is the one that brought back Roe & Co. So George Roe might be rolling over in his grave thinking about this. So, but anyway, the reason that they brought it back, Diageo at one time did own Bushmills. For whatever reason, they got out of the Irish whiskey game when they sold it. And at this point, up until they opened this, they were only in Scotch and other spirits. But the reason that they wanted to bring it back is they wanted to open a distillery, and they had the space. This is on Guinness's campus. It's in the old Guinness power plant, or power station, I think that's what they call it. And it overlooks the last two things standing from the George Roe era, which is their tower, which is just this kind of like a monolith, and then a pear tree, which still blooms to this day, which is kind of cool. And I think that's kind of, I don't remember if it's referenced on, I believe it's referenced, yeah, at the bottom, inspired by the original George Roe. And then it talks about the pear tree and tower. So coming in at 90 proof or 45%, this is a higher entry proof than almost all other Irish blended whiskeys. Bushmills, Jameson's, Tullamore, Paddy's, they're all 80 proof. So you're getting a little bit higher proof. And I kind of think this is Diageo's answer to the William Grant & Sons Monkey Shoulder, where it's a little higher proof. It's a decent blend, and it's created for mixing. That's what they advertise it for. That's what they're pushing. Their entire website is just full of different cocktails to make with Roe & Co. This is still sourced though, so they are producing their own stuff. They opened the actual distillery in about 2019, I think. But that stuff won't be old enough to be called Irish whiskey until at least 22, 3-year minimum statement. So anyway, very Irish on the nose. Honey sweetness. Definitely get some pears. A little ethanol burn, I would say, because it's a younger whiskey. Higher grain content than a malt. A little oily, but still pretty smooth. But it does have a good bite of spice. Solely bourbon aged, so you're not going to get any extra fruity, dark fruit sweetness that you would get from, other barrel finishes, sherries or ports, things like that. decent finish. It is slightly mouth coating. It does stick with you, and it's a good whiskey. A little more expensive than your Jamesons and Bushmills. You're paying a little bit more. It's maybe like a premium-esque blend at $30+. It is good, but it's really not made for sipping. They even say that, you know, they're making it for blending. It is good enough to sip, but I would definitely make this more with mules or Irish old fashions or more complex things, Manhattans, things like that, that it's more designed for. So thanks again for watching another episode of the Barley Lads. Today we've been talking about Roe CO Blended Irish Whiskey. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Slàinte.